Hi all, and thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Mitesh, and today we will talk about an end-to-end model-based approach to developing and certifying control systems of medical devices using Simulink and Speedgoat test systems. I am delighted to have Magnus Nord joining this session. Magnus is an application engineer at MathWorks with an extensive background in applying model-based design to medical device engineering. So let's get started. Medical device innovation is central to advancing patient care and enhancing clinical processes. Emerging medical technologies are becoming increasingly software-defined, which is not just a term borrowed from the automotive industry, but a notable trend across bio, med, and health tech. Our customers across this broad sector are developing solutions for smart implants and prostheses, advanced patient monitoring and therapeutics, and of course, robot-assisted surgical tools. We will hear more about our customers and their innovations very soon. But straight away, we can say that the control systems for such devices are incredibly complex because they can feature multiple sensors, advanced computing capabilities and machine learning algorithms, as well as multi-domain components, be they electrical, mechanical, or fluidic. All this complexity results in a greater risk of early design errors and integration issues later down the development process. Now, with patient safety and well-being at the forefront, regulatory bodies are enforcing stricter guidelines on medical device development and verification and validation processes. MedTech companies need to be compliant with these certification standards set by the FDA in the US or the MDR and IVDR in the EU, with IEC and ISO being the harmonized international standards. To accelerate the development and certification of medical devices, our customers are leveraging a model-based design workflow with Simulink and Speedgoat. Magnus will later discuss how model-based design maps onto medical device certification, but in short, model-based design allows you to focus on models which are intuitively closer to functional requirements. And it is these requirements that matter to key industry stakeholders, government regulators, scientific advisors, healthcare providers, and ultimately end users, patients and clinicians. Model-based design for medical control software ensures that requirements can be traced to models, code that is automatically generated from models, and tests that are needed to fulfill verification and validation tasks according to the certification standards. The medical device development solution by MathWorks and Speedgoat is designed to assist you with technical and workflow challenges in accordance with the harmonized international standards such as the IEC 62304. Benefit from a fully Simulink integrated solution that provides flexible and automated workflows, powerful software and hardware solutions for developing the complex control systems in medical devices, and modular test systems that scale with your needs. Let me introduce some of the Speedgoat test systems which you can use for your specific medical device use cases. First, we have the performance. It is the most scalable and performant test system with the highest I/O flexibility. It is generally suited for desktop and laboratory use. It is powerful enough for applications in medical robotics and computer vision for medical imaging. It is the mainstay for hardware-in-the-loop testing and real-time digital twin simulation for completing verification and validation tasks according to the certification standards for medical control software. Next, we have the mobile, baseline, and unit. These are smaller, rugged, and portable systems for use in lab or in hospital or even on person as wearables. They are ideal for control design prototyping and embedded deployment in medium-sized medical devices, such as patient monitoring, diagnostic, and treatment. Before we dive further into our solutions, let's review today's webinar agenda. First, we will hear from our customers themselves and learn about their medical innovation journey partnering with Speedgoat. Then we will jump into our solutions with some hands-on demos involving a heart rate monitor and a robot arm to cover the essentials of data acquisition, rapid control prototyping, and hardware-in-the-loop testing. Following this, Magnus will take over to provide a comprehensive overview of a model-based design workflow for the IEC certification spanning the lifecycle of medical control software. And finally, we will wrap up with some key takeaways. Without further ado, let's jump into our customer success stories. Allow me to first introduce Humotech, who are developing solutions in the space of robotic prosthesis. Their Caplex system is a prosthetic emulation platform with control hardware that integrates the Speedgoat baseline test system for processing sensor and actuator data from wearable devices. Let's hear from the Humotech CEO, Dr. Josh Caputo, on this collaboration with Speedgoat.
Hi, I'm Josh Caputo, founder and CEO of Humotech. We're a Pittsburgh-based company spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. We're dedicated to transforming the way the world develops and uses wearable machines, including prosthetics, exoskeletons, and beyond. Our current business is focused on providing the innovators in this space with all of the necessary hardware and software tools they need to develop and test control algorithms for these systems without having to do any reinventing of the wheel. At the heart of our work is what we call the Caplex system, a modular, customizable, and scalable platform that's supporting a broad range of research and development. From deepening our understanding of human biomechanics to supporting the development of new product ideas or informing potential new advanced rehabilitation strategies. Designing control systems for these kinds of systems is challenging, so we've developed our tools to make this easier, faster, and we've really strived to lower barriers to access. Real-time control is crucial because of the human safety aspects, as is performance because human biomechanics requires high loads and fast motion. Controllers must be both stable and intuitive to use. The robotic system must be helpful when assistance is needed and transparent when it's not. Our solutions rely on model-based design with Simulink deployed to Speedgoat hardware. These tools enable us and our customers to hit the ground running. Everything just works with minimal setup. And we've designed an environment in MATLAB Simulink that is very flexible across applications. Our code quickly adapts to low or high numbers of degrees of freedom, prosthesis or exoskeleton assistance, people of different body types, different sensor suites, and so on.
That was Josh from Humotech. This was a fascinating insight into the development of complex control systems for the human-machine interface in this realm of medical robotics. Next, we shift our attention to the domain of patient monitoring and therapeutics with Sync2Brain, who are developing solutions for personalized brain stimulation therapies. Their BOSS device is a modified Speedgoat unit test system that serves as a certified embedded controller for processing bioelectric signals and analyzing brain phases. Recently, Sync2Brain received confirmation that Speedgoat's ISO certification is interfacing with their IEC certification as they progress towards clinical trials. Here is Sync2Brain CEO Dr. Ramona Samba to explain more.
Hi, I'm Ramona Samba, co-founder and CEO of Sync2Brain. Our mission is to provide personalized brain stimulation treatment to patients suffering from depression and other mental illness. While standard TMS blindly stimulates the brain, we measure the brain oscillation, so the brain state, in real time. Our algorithm analyzes this data and then controls the timing of the stimulation pulses down to the millisecond. Our BOSS device is a customized Speedgoat unit device, an embedded controller that is certification compliant. We have been using Simulink to develop this product from the very beginning and testing it with Speedgoat. The certification compliance has helped us speed up the process until medical certification. The BOSS device is already available for researchers, but to be able to provide therapy to patients, we have to go through certification as a medical device. And this is what we have been focusing on. It involves a lot of testing, a lot of documentation to be compliant to all the different standards and norms. We have already reached some milestones for the hardware, for the company, with CE mark for Europe just within sight.
So that was Dr. Ramona Samba with another great insight into Sync2Brain's certification milestones and how Speedgoat test systems can be adapted for clinical use in patient monitoring and therapeutic devices. Now, here is another success story from Siemens Healthineers, this time on medical imaging and in particular X-ray radiography. As part of their development process, the Siemens Healthineers team are applying rapid control prototyping with FPGA-based computer vision, which leads to lots of individual elements of complexity: FPGA, CPU, interface, and hardware and application-specific challenges. And the bigger challenge is then, of course, to retain all the benefits of RCP, such as rapid evaluation and iteration cycles and increased development speed, as Dr. Bress from the team states, and do so while managing these various sources of complexity. So their engineering team followed a model-based approach to separate concerns by partitioning Simulink models for control application software and hardware abstraction layers and making extensive use of buses. And then, of course, using Speedgoat test systems equipped with the necessary I/O and protocols to readily support FPGA-based signal processing. As a result, the engineers could effectively tame a lot of the complexity and focus on functional design and verification thanks to low-level C and C++ code generation, FPGA synthesis, as well as automation of all possible automatable build steps within their CI/CD infrastructure. With this Simulink and Speedgoat setup, the Siemens Healthineers team could achieve fast and flexible real-time tracing of their FPGA signals for their X-ray application. If you want to learn more about how Humotech, Sync2Brain, and Siemens Healthineers are using Simulink and Speedgoat, just scan these QR codes to get the full success stories. Please note this video will be available for you after this recording, so you can always come back later to this part. You will also find these links on the webinar webpage. On our website, you will find more success stories from innovative medtech companies who are rooted in model-based design and real-time testing. Applications include hearing implants, intensive care ventilators, anti-tremor braces, and other autonomous exoskeletons. So, now we've heard from our customers, perhaps you are considering getting started with Speedgoat. Well, now is a good time to jump into some hands-on demos. Now for our first demo on data acquisition, which involves the heart rate monitor with the analog PPG sensor. Here I want to show you just how simple it is to get started with Simulink and Speedgoat for any biomedical application that requires reading and processing biosignals. So here is our Simulink canvas. We can organize the model and data visualization as follows, and this will really depend on your individual medical device use case, but for our heart rate monitor, we only need 3 parts. First, we want to read the analog signals from our PPG sensor into Simulink using Speedgoat hardware. I'm going to show you how to do this step by step in a bit. Now, once we have the raw signal, we will then process it. For this example, we will simply adapt the Pan-Tompkins algorithm. Once we have our process signal, we can then calculate the heart rate to then visualize the data in real time. So here is our Simulink canvas. In order to read in the PPG signals from the sensor, we only need to add a few blocks. First, we will add the Speedgoat IO397 analog block, and going forward with the other blocks, we will be adjusting the parameters based on the baud rate and the sampling frequency. I will not go into the details here, but the main point is just how readily available the blocks are and how straightforward it is to adjust parameters. Then next, we will add a buffer block and connect its input to the output from the analog block. Just a few clicks to do this. Now we will add a sample rate conversion block for some downsampling and then connect its input to the output from the buffer block. And finally, we now have our raw PPG signal. Great. So now we have our raw PPG signal. We can go on to process it so we can calculate the heartbeat. We are going to process it using an adapted Pan-Tompkins algorithm, as you can see here, which applies some filters, squaring, and then an integrator to smooth out the signal and isolate the peaks. And then we can just use a thresholding method to identify the peaks which correspond to the individual heartbeats. As you can see, these blocks are readily available, so you can quickly implement the algorithm of your choosing. Of course, MATLAB and Simulink go hand in hand, so you can also program a MATLAB function inside a Simulink block. So this Simulink-based workflow is also accessible for MATLAB code programmers, especially those coming from a background in computational biology or biomedical engineering. Now we have the heartbeats, which I will visualize here alongside the PPG signal. They will appear here on this display and scope blocks. So now the sensor is on my hand at this very moment, as you can see on the inset video. I will just click run on target and voila, my heartbeat is visualized in the display block, a resting heart rate of 70 beats per minute, which is a calm way to conclude this data acquisition demo. In our next set of demos, we will be guided by the example of a medical robot, designing and testing its control software using rapid control prototyping and hardware-in-the-loop simulation. Before delving into the demos themselves, let's quickly discuss the basic architecture of such medical robotic systems. Most generally speaking, robotic systems consist of a controller and a plant. An input signal is applied to the controller, which controls the signal fed to the plant, and in a closed-loop system, the output is connected back to the input. The controller could be for a surgical robot, a rehabilitation robot, or even a biomimicry robot. During development, you can use the Speedgoat real-time target machine as a prototype controller and refine your algorithm controlling the real system. This is called rapid control prototyping. In a later step, you want to test your embedded controller extensively in a variety of realistic scenarios. You can do this by connecting it to the Speedgoat target machine, which now works as a hardware-in-the-loop simulator that runs a digital twin of the plant. This allows you to test earlier, automate your tests, and cover edge cases which would be dangerous using the real plant, all of which is necessary for IEC certification. As you can see, the real-time target machine forms an essential component in prototyping a plant controller system. Let's imagine a scenario where you develop a surgical robot with computer vision capabilities, which is becoming increasingly commonplace in minimally invasive surgeries such as laparoscopic procedures. Suppose we want our robot to be vision guided, a multiple degree of freedom that can sort between some physiological markers, red and blue. In this simplified scenario, inspection of the markers is done using images from a gigabit Ethernet camera, and computer vision algorithms then enable detection. Speedgoat performance real-time target machine will handle this task, as well as generating movement commands for the robot to pick up and remove the respective parts. The communication interface in this example are gigabit Ethernet for the camera input and EtherCAT, a widely used industrial protocol to control robot arms. These can be any of the protocols that are needed in the medical industry. Additionally, we have the challenge of processing high resolution video in real time, which requires a lot of processing power. We will work with a prototype controller deployed to a Speedgoat machine, and the plant will be an actual robotic arm with a gripper. The input will be the very same vision signals from the camera that we saw on the previous slide. This is my hardware for testing. As placeholders for the physiological marker, I'm simply using different colored balls, where the red ones represent the physiological markers that need to be removed. The camera is mounted in a fixed angle overhead on the opposite side of the robot. Let's first see how the computer vision algorithm works on a very high level. The overhead camera image is cropped to the area of interest and thresholding on an intensity image is used to remove the background. An algorithm for connected component analysis, or CCA for short, then calculates bounding boxes and center coordinates for each object, and we filter them by primary color to detect the red balls. Finally, we transform the detections from pixel coordinates into robot's reference frame and send them down the data stream. The object detections are then fed into the supervisory controller for the robot arm as planar XY coordinates. The move commands generated by the controller are sent to the robot using EtherCAT transmit blocks from the Speedgoat I/O block set. I have also added 2 dashboard indicators to observe the state of the system and a trigger button. I am already connected to the Simulink real-time target machine, as we can see in the top left corner. So I just click run on target and the model is compiled, loaded and executed on the target. You can see the robot on the camera here, and the dashboard shows that it is initialized and the objects have been detected. So when I click the pickup button, the robot will move the first object and from the list and remove it. I simply click the button again while the objects are being detected, and of course this can be fully automated later, but for testing purposes it is handy to have these controls. The vision algorithm is actually running on an FPGA, our real-time vision processing I/O module. It supports various vision interfaces such as USB UVC, Gig eVision, SDI, and HDMI. With clock rates in the range of hundreds of megahertz, it allows you to process high-resolution, high-frame-rate video streams in real time. It can read in or emulate multiple cameras simultaneously, record and replay files, and is fully Simulink programmable. The algorithm I'm using in our robot arm example is based on a shipping example from MathWorks' Vision HDL toolbox, which I'm linking here. Again, the model is far too complex to discuss in detail, but I encourage you to take a look for yourself. From this Simulink model, we can then generate HDL code to deploy onto our FPGA. By simply going through the HDL workflow advisor, this is where we map Simulink signals to hardware interfaces, define clock rate, and so on. It's a simple step-by-step process, allowing you to seamlessly integrate high-speed vision processing into your real-time tests. This could be tremendously useful for medical imaging such as radiology. Up next, I would like to discuss an example for hardware-in-the-loop testing. This is where you test your production controller against a digital twin of your plant. Some of the main benefits of hardware-in-the-loop testing are: you can test in a safe yet completely realistic environment. You can avoid a lot of logistic overheads from only testing with prototypes. You can even test when the real system is unavailable and therefore start testing earlier. You can imagine how valuable this is for medical device development. Virtual testing can also be fully automated. You can go through various test cases and accumulate hours worth of test data without requiring any user input after the start command. And last but not least, you can inject faults and test edge cases of your control problems without the risk of damaging the real system, which is exactly what Magnus will discuss later in the context of FMEA. A main challenge here is how to create a realistic and accurate digital twin model of your real system. Let's take a look at an example for our robot arm. When you buy robotic components off the shelf, you typically get the 3D CAD models with it. So I'd like to show you how to use those for creating a SimScape model. For our specific robot arm, the CAD data is already included in the Robotics Systems toolbox, along with many other 3D models. One simple command loads the data, and we can already view the 3D representation of the robot. Using the function smimport, we can then generate a SimScape multi-body model from it. Here we can see the generated links and joints, adjust parameters such as inertia and mass distribution, or let MATLAB automatically calculate these values from the part's geometry. When we simulate this model, the Mechanics Explorer shows us a 3D visualization of the scene. This is just a blueprint model with no controller yet, but it can quickly be used to perform kinematic or dynamic simulations and develop motion planning and motor control algorithms. To get a head start in adding the controls, we can refer to one of the many examples shipped with the Robotic Systems Toolbox. For our use case, the example Model and Controller Manipulator arm with Robotics and Simscape seems perfectly suited for the task. When we open the model, we can find a similar Simscape implementation of a different robot arm, which we could replace with the one generated from our CAD model. Then we have models for gripper control, joint torque control, and trajectory planning, which we can explore, customize, and adapt to our needs. Using the imported CAD model allows us to implement this digital twin of the robot arm against which we can test and validate our controller. Following rapid control prototyping and hardware-in-the-loop testing, it is also possible to use Speedgoat target machines as an embedded controller. Why would you want to use a real-time target machine as an embedded controller for your prototypes and smaller series? Well, first, you get the closest possible connection to Simulink, so you can quickly implement controller changes. Secondly, you have less to no constraints on your compute resources, especially when you're trying out different control concepts. Third, a real-time target machine ensures deterministic real-time behavior of your controller, which desktop environments can hardly provide. Overall, it is not only great for testing and verification and validation activities, but also leads to reduced costs and risks and shorter time to market for medical devices. This concludes our demos covering rapid control prototyping and hardware-in-the-loop testing, which support a model-based workflow towards medical device certification. Now we're going to learn more about this topic as I hand over to Magnus. Magnus, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Mitesh. I'm really happy to be here talking about medical device certification and in particular how model-based design workflow with Simulink and Speedgoat supports development according to harmonized international standards. Don't worry, I will not go through all these standards that are applicable to a ventilator, however interesting they might be. Instead, I will today focus on the IEC 62304 standard, which is applicable for medical device software. The software lifecycle covers all steps, from initial ID all the way to software maintenance. And there are 3 software safety classes, A to C depending on the cause of harm, if it's non-existent, minor, or major. As you can see in this picture, model-based design covers all safety classes and all chapters in the standard except for software release. But how do you map the chapters in the standard with the MBD workflow and what tools are used? In the certification toolkit, there is a referenced MBD workflow that helps you set up your development. All needed artifacts stipulated by the standard are handled. But how does the MBD workflow look like, and what is the difference between this and traditional development? Traditional development depends on manual handovers between phases of development. Manual handover also occurs within phases between different disciplines of engineers, such as mechanical, electrical, and software engineers. This introduces errors, and they are often discovered late. The cost to fix these issues and the time to fix these issues increases exponentially in late stages of your development process. Using model-based design, these handovers will be eliminated because models will help you capture requirements, specify your system behavior and architecture, perform simulations. Using automation, you can automatically generate your code from your models and perform early continuous testing. What is early continuous testing? Thanks to the simulation capabilities of your models and the corresponding test cases, you can verify your requirements early, and you can verify your design early. Thanks to code generation and the excellent hardware from Speedgoat, you can do virtual integration testing long before your prototypes even exist. Throughout this process, you can reuse your test cases all the way up to physical system testing. Early testing means detecting errors early, saving both time and money. MBD removes all manual steps and human error from your development workflow so that you can focus your time on what truly matters, which is creating innovative design solutions. Using the ventilator example, I will go through the model-based design workflow on a high level to showcase how to speed up your development and improve your product quality. As I mentioned earlier, the software development within this example maps to the standard IEC 62304. In Certification Toolkit, all process steps and tools are described, but I will now go through the key elements of this process, starting with the requirements. Using a canvas-focused workflow, all your requirements will be shown next to your model using Simulink requirement. Let's take a look at the links at the bottom right corner. You can see links between requirements, test cases, and test result, and also with your FMEA within easy reach. These digital threads are easily handled, and artifacts such as traceability matrices can be easily exported. The chapter 5.3 talks about software architecture, which maps to the system engineering workflow using System Composer, which allows you to do all system engineering tasks such as adding attributes to your components and do roll-up calculations and optimizations on a system level. Here you can see the interface specification for the sensor port. The interface specification is an important event architect, but you can also use this interface as a starting point for your FMEA. In order to automate your FMEA, you first need to add behaviors to all your components, then create links between each failure and the implemented faults, and then add links between the detection method decided and the implementation of that detection method. When you click the button Analyze Spreadsheet, each detection method is automatically verified using a simulation. And furthermore, you can easily export the result of the automated FMEA as an artifact in your device history file for the US or medical device file in Europe. And regarding Chapter 5.4, Software Detailed Design, this model also includes a control model made in Simulink and a monitoring model created in Stateflow. The plant model consists of a breathing circuit and a patient model. Both these are implemented in Simscape Moist Air domain. Thanks to code generation and a great collaboration between MathWorks and Speedgoat, you can easily generate code and deploy your algorithm or plant model onto a Speedgoat for HEAL or rapid prototyping. And finally, you can verify your most critical requirements, those that come from your FMEA at an early stage, long before your prototypes are built. If you fail to correctly investigate your need for redundancy, it will be costly to add the redundancy at a later stage in your project. As you can see by the errors, each test case in the test manager has links to the requirements, the design, and also the fault to be injected. Your digital thread is safeguarded throughout your project, and it also includes the FMEA. To summarize, by focusing on simulation and automation, and by reusing tests and an agile workflow with a focus on early testing, you can achieve cost savings and time savings. If you want to learn more about model-based design for medical device development or best practice for IEC 62304 compliance using model-based design, you should read these two excellent white papers or reach out to us via the email shown later in this presentation. Now back to you, Mitesh.
Thank you, Magnus, for the overview of the medical device certification and the practical walkthrough of the model-based design workflow with the ventilator example. So let's wrap up today's webinar. There is a single takeaway for you. Speedgoat test systems and Simulink provide a testing solution for all aspects of medical device development and certification. Why is that? You can rapidly prototype algorithms for complex medical control systems, as model-based design allows you to focus on functional design and sets you up to efficiently complete core certification tasks. You can develop within the unified environment of Simulink, which allows you to create a digital thread that traces requirements to models, code, and tests, which in turn helps you manage complexity. And you can use the performant, modular, and scalable test systems, which allow you to emulate sensors and electrical signals, as well as subsystems of your medical device, so you can thoroughly test your medical control design end to end. Thanks for staying with us until the end of this webinar.
You want to learn more about real-time controls testing? Then find additional content linked here.